Ko Chris Ferkins tōku inga, ko tamaki makaurau hau, engari kei kumu tōku kāinga anai nei. Tēnā koutou. People healing nature, healing people. We workshopped how to describe the purpose that we wanted to achieve. And this is what we came up with after many goes. There's a lot embedded in it, and this is what my talk is about today. As much as anything, it's about the relationship. It's not nature, it's not community, it's about the relationship between nature and community. It's about place. What am I... Moving on. It's about place. When we look at a place, we see many features within it. The streams, the strips of bush that run along the streams and along the roadsides, the trees and vegetation that's in people's backyards, etc. We also see a community. A key concept that we need to incorporate here is ecological integrity. So, what is that? Well, biodiversity, which I've reframed as local diversity, processes that function within the nature of the site, structure of both of the habitats that are present in the site and of the landscape itself. Another way of thinking about it is as ecological functionality on a landscape scale, and the key point there is that ecological integrity. Sorry, is that landscape functionality. But before we could do much, we had to get behind it. There are three main problems that we face in trying to do this. The first and probably the biggest one, referred to by the speaker from Auckland Council earlier, is the culture. The culture of the organisations and institutions that we're part of society as a whole. We are used to seeing nature and community as two separate things with maybe a bit of an overlap. It's not like that. This is not news to anyone who's coming from an Indigenous point of view, but it is quite challenging for a lot of other people. So, take it bit by bit. The challenge with regards to biodiversity is shown in the graph, the trajectory that is shown in that graph. And the challenge is not to fix it, it's to turn the curve. That is our challenge in these times. From there, we can achieve, but to start with, we must turn the curve. Third challenge is the engagement element, the community element. The graph shows the uptake of ideas, of new ideas. And the first two sections there show where I'm assuming that almost all of us in this room sit. The research shows that in terms of active participation in the outcomes, there's somewhere between 1 and 5% currently engaged, a maximum of about 16%. And my question is, what about the other 84%? If we are going to be serious about this, we have to engage the other 84%. So, some key things that those other 84% need, all of us need. One is a sense of belonging. Second is an ability to contribute. And the third thing is hope. So we set our program up on the basis of trying to achieve those three things with a set of tools and techniques and methodologies that enabled us to work. It's a journey. For us, it's been a journey. And I suggest that for anyone starting out on a new and very challenging concept, it will be a journey, and quite a difficult and long one, perhaps. To start with, we needed the belief and courage. Then we needed to develop tools and techniques. And finally, we needed to develop scale. I'm going to give you a few slides. I'm just going to flick through them quickly of a community that we started working with 6 years ago now. This is actually about the fifth community that we started working with, but it's the first one that we started trying out, feeling comfortable about the tools that we had developed and trying to develop on scale. So the first slide shows the community that came to us and asked for our support was essentially 4 people. Frustrated people because they had been trying to do things, mostly on parks, without getting a lot of support either from their community or from the council. They wanted to know how, if we were serious about what we were claiming we could do to help them. It moved from there, and you can see we set the structure up so that they were able to move from 4 people to a series of neighbourhoods, to a series of additional neighbourhoods, and later, as you'll see, to the whole community. It became a crucible for weed and pest control, community gardens, plant nursery, youth work, ethnic engagement, business, and of course the greenies. So, and the next one. The framework. I talked about ecological integrity before, but actually it's integrity of both. And actually the same things apply. Local diversity, encouraging local diversity, processes and structure. You can see from those previous slides how we started to develop structure within that community in a series of neighbourhoods, developing with coordinators and an overarching coordinating group. That the structure within the community is necessary as structure within the landscape. So what we developed was a whole of landscape, whole of community approach. And what we did was to reframe some of the dialogue. Instead of talking about priorities, we talked about roles. In other words, every piece of the landscape is valuable in some way. Every piece of the landscape plays a role in terms of the functionality of that landscape. It doesn't work if you pick off the odd bit, good bit, and focus on that and leave everything else alone. And communities are the same. Then we developed capability. And we did that instead of trying to do information and technical stuff around talks and education with that sort of focus. Building capability, that requires trust, faith that people can work and learn, and keenness on their part to do so. We then moved to the planning, and for each, you'll recognise the symbol from the earlier slide. So we take that concept and we work it for each program or each community that we're working with. We engage with the communities, and you can see the role of information, or at least competence, it's the last thing on that list. If we're going to engage those communities, you have to have vision, relevance, autonomy or agency, relational access, and then finally competence. And so the facilitation is strong, becomes less necessary as the group gains confidence and belief in what they're doing, and the action becomes more and more effective as they go through that process. So, to finish with, good people. Remember, these are good people that we're working with, and they want to do the right thing. They do care. One of the questions that I often get asked is, how do you get people to care? You don't have to get people to care. You just have to believe. People do hold environmental values. There's a set of about 5 or 6 primary values, of which environment is one, and it's just the order in which they are. It's not that they don't hold it. To have faith, people deserve for you to have faith in them, give them agency. And they do have hope, or at least they want hope. And so, as a mover, we need to illustrate that there is a foundation for hope, and that they can jump on board and do things. So, thank you. And my question is, what's your project? Could you move from site to system, be relational, build ecological integrity, and build belonging, contribution, and hope? Thank you.